The Lord reigns. Let the earth rejoice. Let the many coastlands be glad. Clouds and thick darkness are all around him. Righteousness and justice are the foundations of his throne. Now, you may have noticed over the last few days that many of the themes of this collection of Psalms are pretty similar. Today we find ourselves in Psalm 97. Now, this book of songs is a recognized compendium of the royal hymns of Yahweh, probably written exclusively for use by the Levites in temple worship, and would have been sung in awe and reverence, telling all those in attendance that you are now approaching the supreme being of the universe. These were the songs of the Most High God, the King over all creation. But you know, we live in a world where the notion of kingship is a joke. Here in the UK, our monarchy are the subject of constant rumour and scandal. They even have their own show on Netflix, which has completely demystified any notion of the royalty of the Windsors. I mean, one of them has turned out to be a close associate of the world's most high-profile sex trafficker and paedophile. Not exactly what you'd want to associate with our monarch, say. And who exactly are these people anyway? You know, the royal families of Europe, including the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire, the Russian Tsar and his family, the Dutch monarchy, and the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, or Windsors for short, were feudal landowners, conquerors and tyrants who collected huge taxes from the peasants and serfs who worked their lands. They stole, pillaged and plundered their way to the top of society through shameless crimes of opportunity and injustice. These people were completely amoral. They had no fear of God, for all their religious trappings of their titles and the doctrine of the divine right of kings, which they used in some vain attempt to legitimize their rule. They believed that they had been placed upon the throne by God himself, and they were in fact his agent of his will upon the earth. They were in a lifelong partnership with God. They would even speak on his behalf as well as their own. It's where the royal we come from. Oh, we are not amused, meaning them and the Lord. It was an attempt to ward off any challenge to their rule. And in fact, usually the only one who could ever really trump that card was the Holy See in Rome. Yeah, the Pope, which is why you can appreciate when the Reformation happened, it was such a huge threat to his power base, because if the King of England was head of his own church and could now grant his own divorce, well, then the Pope had no leverage over him. These people, these kings and queens, this royalty was completely corrupt, all out for their own ends, oppressing the poor, slaughtering the innocent, and making a mockery of the God they purported to represent. If we turn to the Book of Kings or the Chronicles of Israel, we find a very similar story. In 1 Samuel 8, the people come to Samuel and demand a king, so they can be like the other nations. And so God tells Samuel to grant their request, but he warns them plainly. These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to be his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and some to plough his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards, and give them to his servants. He will take the tenth of your grain and of your vineyards, and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants and female servants, and the best of your young men and your donkeys, and put them to his work. He will take the tenth of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people still decide they want a king. And so Saul is anointed as the first king over Israel. And you can read how that story turns out in the rest of 1 Samuel. But in summary, Saul ain't such a good king. And following Saul, the shepherd king, David comes to the throne, prefiguring the coronation of Jesus as Israel's Messiah. And as much as David was the man after God's own heart and went down in the annals of the histories of Israel as her greatest king, David weren't no saint either, folks. His son Solomon would fall into idolatry and leave a divided kingdom, a rift that would never truly be healed throughout the pages of the Old or New Testaments. After the kingdom was divided, there were roughly 20 generations of kings. In the south, in Judah, only 8 of those 20 were not evil idolaters. In the northern kingdom of Israel, Every one of those 20 generations of kings were evil, rotten to the core, performing ever more heinous and villainous acts of depravity. You see, these men had no foundation to their rule, only the office and the position of power that being the king brought. And the power and authority of the king was absolute. Now power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So time and again, what we witness is a distortion of what the picture of the king is. With no firm foundation from which to rule, the position of king can so easily enslave and infect the heart of the one who sits upon the throne. Because there is only one who can truly reign. That is why these Psalms repeat the truth and remind us of the reality that it is the Lord who reigns. And because it is the Lord who reigns, the earth can rejoice. When God is recognized as king, the inhabitants of the earth have reason to lift their voices, because the one who sits upon the throne is holy and righteous and good. Yahweh has no need to legitimize his reign. His throne is founded upon righteousness and justice. This truth gives us every confidence that he will rule with love and grace. In his kingdom, there are no tyrants, no slaves, no abuse of power, no exploitation of the weak and vulnerable. The great king provides for his people, ensuring that every one of his subjects knows goodness and mercy every day of their lives. In his kingdom, the great king has redeemed his people, enabled them to know true freedom. He has broken the chains of the captives. He heals the hearts of the broken. In his kingdom, the great king will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. So come, let us rejoice together, Oakwood. Let us lift our voices in praise and adoration. We don't have to put our faith in the corrupt kings or rulers of this earth. We should never find our hope in the political systems that seek to govern, for truly the Lord reigns. Let the earth rejoice. Let the many coastlands be glad. Cloud and thick darkness are all around him. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. Fire goes before him and burns up his adversaries all around. His lightnings light up the world. The earth sees and trembles. The mountains melt like wax before the Lord. Before the Lord of all the earth, the heavens proclaim his righteousness, and all the peoples see his glory. All worshippers of images are put to shame, who make their boast in worthless idols. Worship him, all you gods. Zion hears and is glad, and the daughters of Judah rejoice, because of your judgments, O Lord. For you, O Lord, are the most high over all the earth. You are exalted far above all gods. O you who love the Lord, hate evil. He preserves the lives of his saints. He delivers them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, and joy for the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, O you righteous, and give thanks to his holy name.